Hey everyone, we got Felicia Menon on the show today. Felicia is currently the head of talent acquisition over at Juniper Square. Yeah, really looking forward to having you on today. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, me too. Um, so hey, where are you from?
I'm from Wisconsin. That's where I live now, but I grew up in the Illinois suburbs. So my parents moved there when I was 3, 4. So very Midwest kid and very close to my family that still lives in Wisconsin. But I ended up living in Chicago for quite a bit. So have been in this area for a while.
Nice, yeah, and you were telling me you have like quite a really cool multicultural background as well, right?
Yeah. So my parents met in Milwaukee, but my dad is actually from India, from Bangalore, and then my mom's side of the family is a mix of Polish and Croatian. So talk about an interesting mix. I actually ended up growing up a lot more closely with my mom's side of the family just to geography and who
Mm.
I had access to, and we had a lot of really cool traditions there, but it was really cool to see that kind of presented differently in my dad's side of the family, my mom's side of the family, and I think helped really shape just kind of how I viewed the world and different people, different differences, religions, all of those type of things. So very early got to see that.
That's such a cool background, like growing up in the States and then having like, parents from different parts of the world. Have you traveled to India, Croatia, Poland?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have not traveled to Poland or Croatia actually. That is on my list and I hope to get to it really soon actually. I have been to India. We went 3 or 4 times when I was a kid and I really remember those some of those trips, the ones that I was old enough to, but I remember my first thing when I landed in India, I was like, where are the road signs? I was like 6 and I was so confused on kind of what the massive differences there. But I actually got the opportunity to go with my current organization as an adult two times now. We built an office in Bangalore and Mumbai with Juniper Square, and that was a really cool full circle moment. So I'd gone as a kid with
Wow.
family, I'd gone in as an adult with my organization, and gotten to hire teams and offices there. So that was yeah, very
That's
very full circle.
that's awesome. That's
Hmm.
so cool. I've always wanted to go to India. I think I haven't because I feel like I need to go for like a long period of time because it's such a massive country and it's so culturally diverse within the country. So it's
Yeah.
uh, I would love to go. I actually have a friend of mine who he sold his company and he was initially supposed to go for a month, but he just fell in love with the country and he just continued to travel. And I think he's been there for like 5 months now. Yeah, he's just like staying. He's loves it so much,
I'm never coming back.
Right, yeah. Um, that's
No, it is a
so
beautiful
cool.
country, very beautiful culture, and very welcoming.
Yeah.
That's been my takeaways.
Do you know where you want to go in Croatia?
Not yet. Besides, so my mom and my sister and I always talk about like we need to just like do a girls' trip and go to
Yeah.
the beaches, see where our family was from, see some of that. But no, haven't really fully thought it through yet.
I was there for about a month
Really?
and
How did you like it?
I loved it. And I was actually going to stay for 3 months when I started. So one of my companies is Secure Vision. It's an embedded RPO that I started a decade ago. And the first few years, it was not a scale organization. That was not the intent. I met my girlfriend at the time, who then became my wife, and we were traveling. And so the idea was, we're gonna travel and live in different places. This is like right when Airbnb became a thing, which like really opened up possibilities.
Yeah.
But I was right outside Dubrovnik and like Big Zaton, which is like a small town outside of it. And it was absolutely gorgeous. I had to leave because the internet wasn't at the time wasn't strong enough, and like I was trying to close an exclusive deal with Grubhub, and my internet kept cutting out, and somehow they looked past it, and I was able to close it. But like I remember being at a cafe with like the internet. You ended up having to leave a little early, but it's such a beautiful country and such an amazing culture. I love the people there. So.
Both. And I'm lucky that I get a mix of both of them in me as well.
Yeah, it's such like incredible places to have like family and to be able to travel to. That's so cool. You mentioned like religion was a pretty big deal, right? Like when you were growing up,
Yeah, very much so.
right?
And I actually really appreciate that even from a young age, like I knew my dad had grown up in a different combo of religions. He had an interesting background, but my mom, he really switched to Christianity, Catholicism when he met my mom. And so we really
Hmm.
grew up in that. And when I was in middle school, we switched to like non-denominational Christianity, which if anyone like asks me what it is, I always just say like, the church with the electric guitar, just that kind of like modern community values, kind of central to what the church was about. I also went to a private Christian school, so that was in the same building as my church. So it was very like every day of the week, I felt like I basically was at church, and I actually really respect and am deeply grateful for the values that I got from being raised in that things like be kind to people, treat people the way you would want to be treated, kind of having that clear sense of right and wrong, I think has stayed as a through theme throughout my life. I also think being raised in it in that deeply can come with its rooms for judgment and misunderstanding sometimes as you're growing up. So when I was 16, 17, I actually really started asking a lot of questions that I think at the time weren't necessarily welcome in the room. And it led me into this like really lifelong journey of wanting to understand as much as possible about a lot of different types of religions. I think that also came from just like knowing my dad's background and some like Hindi and Muslim background that impacted him. I was able to go to college and learn a lot more through some like, classes that I just decided to take. So I'm appreciative of it. And then it's kind of been a lifelong journey of just of learning more about them.
Do you are you still very religious now?
I am not, though I will say I have a deep respect for people who are and also the value system. I think they're a lot more common across all types of religions and belief systems than people realize. I think a lot of people like to differentiate because of them. But what I've learned is there are so many similarities and a lot of core values that exist across all of them, which I think I could go into for a lot longer.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I find like religion is just such a huge part of culture and to the largest extent like deterministic in terms of our worldview and how we see like language is a huge part of our worldview. Like it determines our like religion. So your dad, when he lived in India, did he follow a different
So
religion
he
or was he?
actually went to, I believe it was like a Jesuit school or a Catholic school. So he had that
Oh,
from a
wow.
schooling perspective. And then his mom and dad were different. I'm forgetting the split. They had
Yeah.
different religions, which is common there. So he had a very wide amount of exposure, but he didn't really bring that into kind of how we were raised.
Hmm.
Besides that, we knew about it. We watched like Bollywood movies with him, and you would see the different kind of like religious representations there. So I was always kind of curious to learn more, the many gods and things like that
Yeah.
represented. So it was always there, but we were very much raised kind of in the religion that my mom grew up in.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's such an
Yeah,
interesting background.
yeah.
I do find like also it's interesting like when we've had a few guests that talk about like their faith that are still like really big
Hmm.
within, whatever the religion they practice. It's interesting. Like I do feel like there's definitely different like kind of like vibe or aura that folks give that are like have a lot of faith and are like heavily involved in church. A lot of times there's like almost this like lightness or
100%.
self-assuredness that is I almost wonder if like people with a lot of faith are like happier. I don't know.
Like they
Like
figured it out in a way. Yes.
yeah, I mean they don't like know, they still don't know, like nobody knows what's going on here. Like but like
No, we don't.
it's like there's just this energy that you sort of get from people that are really in tune with their church and I think also just like with their value system. I think it's like
Yes.
that's a huge part.
I think value system is key. And for me, again, my learning has been it's across all of them. Like I don't know if
Yeah.
like in my personal belief system, I don't know if one is more figured it out than the other. And that brings me comfort in some ways because I think there are so many cultures, so many countries, so many people around the world, and they're all seeking and finding that kind of the fulfillment and value system that I hope makes us all better people and try
Yeah.
to treat people right, things like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you also you're an older sister, right?
I am.
Yeah.
I'm 2 years older than my sister, Malia. We were raised very close and like many sisters, well, I would specifically say she probably was more sick of me as times as the eldest sister who liked to, to tell her what to do. But
Hmm.
we would bicker and fight growing up, but we were always very close. I mean, you had to be. We were the same size and clothes, same, kind of room growing up. You just kind of had to figure it out. But now she is my closest friend, confidant. There's something that can't be traded when you grew up in the same home and have the same just
Yeah.
values alignment. So loved
That's
growing up
awesome.
with her.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
so then you went to when you grew up, you went to University of Michigan, right?
Yes, I did. I did go to the University of Michigan. As I said, I'm a big Midwest kid, so I chose to keep that theme going
Yeah.
into my education. And I was always a very curious kid, kind of top of class, wanting to, know all the answers as I was growing up. And I was picking across a couple schools, and Michigan was very well known academically. And I thought there could be some really good opportunity for me there. I ended up starting in biology and pre-med, actually, which really wasn't a good fit for me. I loved reading growing up. My mom would have to ground me from reading sometimes. She's not proud of it when she admits it, but she was like, you wouldn't do your homework, you wouldn't focus on the things you needed to. So I had to take away the books. And I was in college and I was like, what if I was just an English literature major, and we gave this a try, and I combined psychology with it, I think, to try to make it more palatable. I don't know. But I got a lot of questions of like, what are you intending to do with that? And I will say I really didn't, really didn't know at the time. I would say what I'm doing today is eventually the perfect mix of what I studied, but it was definitely a switch up.
I think honestly, like more people should be getting degrees in English and literature these days because I feel like the writing ability of our folks in this country has just like plummeted. It's sort of scary.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
eh,
One
it's
of my favorite things about it is just everything is a story. If you think about it, everything really is. There's typically some type of like statement or thesis or point anyone is trying to tell, and there's a whole lot of kind of ancillary supporting characters and plot points in anything. Reading about it and then writing about it, I think really opened up my mind. And I think it actually, in a lot of ways, does apply to recruiting and telling people's story and understanding deeply kind of what their motivations are. That is all
yeah.
very
And
on par.
also just being able to like write and so
Yes,
you don't sound like chat when like your employer branding or when you're reaching
I
out to
know.
people. Like I don't know, maybe I'm just like the old guy in the room now, but like when I get an email where it's like, the two commas and like the three everything in three parts and the what's it called? Like the big dash, the M
Yeah.
dash. Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
like,
gosh,
gosh,
I'm
just
like,
why would you
no,
don't send this to me? Like I don't like write. Like it's like right,
have some
you know.
personality behind those
Yeah.
words. Who are
Or
you?
like even like with Grammarly, like I use Grammarly more than I use like I don't like AI too much for drafts.
Mhm.
Actually, I'm like a little resistant to that, but even Grammarly, I feel like you got to be careful because it'll recommend the same like the exact same kind of flow or format for every person, so you end up just sounding like everybody else.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I don't know. I feel like writing and reading and literature and those degrees are just so incredibly valuable. I don't know. I think I think this is changing, but I think just the traditional view of like for folks that are getting into business like us, like doing like a business degree is just
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really make sense to me. Like
Yep.
I feel like there's so many other types of degrees that are so much more valuable,
100%.
frankly. You
It can
know?
be broad. It can be very broad. And I think there is something very special about like forming a specialty or like having a
Yeah.
passion about something. Now, business degrees can lead to that as well. That's not what
Sure.
I'm
Yeah,
saying.
of course. It's
I
not.
really do appreciate that I got to go just like
Yeah.
so deep into some of the things that I was passionate about during my like formative education years. I don't think you really get that opportunity in a lot of ways later from just like
No.
being able to full time like spend your time learning and studying something that you care about.
Yeah, I think I'm just like a huge advocate of people following their passion and like whatever you're passionate about, you're gonna be best at, and you can
Yep.
translate most things in life. Like
Yep.
there's the same fundamental principles to being like successful. I feel like at essentially anything.
Yes.
Like
Agreed.
it doesn't just learn. Like the more you, just like the
We're
whatever you're passionate about, you're gonna learn the most, and you can
yeah,
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that's but
curious.
anyways, yeah, yeah. That's just that's pretty cool. And so you you were also as a young adult too, and maybe this is just coming from like such a a culturally diverse background. It sounds like you also got really into doing some solo trips, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That my first one, I'm trying to think when my first one was. I actually think it was post college. I did a trip to Europe. Now, I will say that one was with my sister. I
Mm,
think my first solo trip was to Hawaii. It actually
that's
was
cool.
a couple months right before lockdown, so right before COVID.
Oh
And
wow.
I'm so thankful I did it. I'm so grateful that the timing worked out. But I went for about 2.5 weeks to Kauai on my own and was able to hike, meet people. I ended up taking a surfing class, and that surfing instructor, introduced me to a bunch of people and was able to kind of meet people locally there, which was, I think is always the best way to travel because then you
Yeah.
actually to see, like, they took me to a beach that only locals could have access to and took me to restaurants that I would never have found on Google. So I always love going and just kind of trying to get embedded as possible. So that was my first one.
Yeah, I love like traveling and getting to the local spots and getting.
Yes.
You know what's weird? I do you ever have this experience like when I travel, I feel like I'm better at making friends when I'm not at home. Maybe
Yes.
I'm just like more social. I don't
Yes.
know, but like I will if I'm in a random country or city, like I'll meet somebody and we'll hang out all night and go to all these different places
Yes.
and like that never happens in DC. Like it's like
No,
literally never happened.
no, I've
It's
thought about
funny.
this a lot actually,
You
because I
have?
think
Okay, so this is
yeah,
a shared, it's not just
this
me.
is a shared story because one, I think two things happen. One, I meet people and I just like, there's just this freedom, like you might not ever see them again with technology now. Yeah, sure, maybe you can
Yeah.
stay in touch with them being via Instagram or whatnot, but like you're just like with someone for a night, like, or just like a day or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And there's just a freedom to just like having fun and getting to know somebody. But also I am way more active when I'm traveling. So like there's this almost like fear of time running out when you're traveling. You want to see everything. So at home, I would be like, all right, I saw like I went and did something fun on the Saturday, did two things. I'm gonna go home and rest now. When you're on vacation, you're like go, go, go the whole time. And I feel like that's when you kind of meet the best people when you're like never resting, never going back to the Airbnb or hotel.
Yeah, for sure. That's so cool. So what was your like biggest takeaway from Hawaii? Like what did you love the most? I mean, it sounds like just meeting the people, right? Like the relationships.
Yeah, the people I did a year and a half ago, I did a big trip to New Zealand as well. And I think there
Yeah,
was
it's
two
awesome.
common takeaways from both of those trips, which is so I'm someone who is very in my regular life organized, efficient. I call myself the type of type A that's like not color coding things, but like if kind of 5 steps can be 2 steps at all times, that's kind of how my brain is thinking. But when you go to places like Hawaii, like New Zealand, there is this element of like island time that they run off of, and there is a warmth and openness to both of those cultures
Mm.
that I found so deeply needed as a person to just kind of go slow down, appreciate things in life that aren't just about hitting the next goal. It's about community. It's about trying new things that you haven't done before, doing things that might like scare you. I've done a lot of really cool hikes and kind of plane trips in and out, things like that. So I've really appreciated those trips to kind of give me a break from the day-to-day kind of grind and mentality, if you will.
Yeah, I think like solo trips are also really cool. Just like gives you time to like think and process and
Yes.
I feel like it's solo trips or other trips to just where you disconnect from like technology or
Mhm.
they're I feel like they're so important and like the older that we get and the more responsibilities we get and it's like either kids or parents getting older plus career and like all of this stuff and it's like it can feel even harder to like get
Mhm.
away,
Yep.
but it's so impactful. Like
Yeah.
it just gives your brain time to process.
Mhm.
And I mean I did the it's different, but I did a trip to actually West Virginia because I'm in Virginia. So I like
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been to West Virginia. It's actually an incredibly beautiful state. People don't really know that, but it's just nothing but this like mountain landscape. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And so I got a cabin like in the middle of the woods up on a mountain without cell reception type of thing, right? Of course there was Wi-Fi. You can't, but I stayed away, right? I'm already not a social media guy, so like besides LinkedIn, I have to. But I just like it was for Secure Visions, my company's 10-year anniversary. So I was like, all right, I'm out. I'm gonna go like a few weeks without, work. And it changed me. I was not expecting like I came back with like this level of like enthusiasm and perspective and like realigned with my value system and like just my motivation and everything was just like I came back with an intensity I felt like I hadn't had since I was like 23,
Yeah.
you know? It's crazy.
I can deeply relate to that. About 6 months ago, I did something very similar at a wellness retreat about 6 hours north of me here in Wisconsin. So drove with my dog to a cabin in the middle of nowhere. Didn't use my phone except to call and check in with my mom once a day because she was like, I need to know
Right, of course, yeah.
that you're safe and alive and that
Right.
there's proof of life, So, but
Yeah.
I agree with you. I came back so rejuvenated, and I think rest is a big thing, but also just having time to think. We move so quickly. There's so many like competing things in day-to-day life, from kind of televisions to phones to all people, all the different needs around you. And I felt so very much like I just needed to slow down, and I needed no one to need me, and I needed to just focus on myself. And I came back with just like a vigor to try to like really stick as much as I can to protecting the times in my day that of working out, of kind of having my me time, of those routines that like build you up. It doesn't need to be like a whole week off. You can put those pieces into your day-to-day life. And I'm still feeling the effects of that six
You're
months ago.
riding that high.
I think I need a refresh. I'm like, I need to go
Yeah,
like 6 months or something.
I think so. I think every like I mean, ideal would be
Mhm.
for me like once a quarter.
Yes.
It's just that I don't know how realistic that is. I guess I probably could if I was like super intentional and organized. It would just be kind
And
of
that
it
might
would,
stress you out more at some points
yeah,
too.
I don't
But
know if I could do it, but yeah,
yeah,
every six
I
months,
agree.
like I minimum once a year,
Yeah.
but probably every 6 months is like more attainable for most people, and it's
Yeah.
already hard to do that. But the argument is like, okay, well, we can't get away. It's too hard. It's like, well, you almost can't afford, like you could look at it if you're lucky enough to be able to do stuff like this, obviously.
Yep.
Like there's
Yep.
there's an element of that, but like you can almost like can't afford not to because you come back with so much perspective and energy that you're just gonna execute better and
Mhm.
like
100%. It's really you investing in a better you. And
right.
I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of things people pay for to do that in other ways. That this is just one that can really, for me at least, I feel like it jumpstarts me. So.
Wait, so what'd you do on this wellness retreat? Like what was it like?
So
I've never done anything like that.
I've recommended it to a lot of people.
Really? Okay.
Some of my colleague, one of my colleagues and one of my friends has gone. But it was like yoga, spa. There was a kind of like sauna, rain room, cold plunge kind of options open to you, which I took a lot of part in. So it had a big health focus. They cooked for you, and it was all organic, all fresh ingredients. So that was also, I think, a really good reset for me in the week. So it was like the best food, but it was like wild rice and different types of, it was fall at the time. So different types of just kind of squashes and these just super yummy dishes. The cook actually at the place had lived in like 30 states. I think chef actually is the right word, but had lived in like 30 states in the US, had lived a bunch of places internationally, and just like meshed it all in his cooking. So that
Nice.
was really cool. And I was like picking his brain. I was like, tell me more. This is the best thing I've ever had.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, that's awesome.
so yeah, a lot of just meat. And then honestly, I read in my cabin a lot. I brought 2 books, and I just read for as long as I wanted and with nowhere to go. And that is
That's
always,
awesome. Wh-
I don't get to do that much anymore in my adult life.
What were you reading?
At the time, I was reading a book called Alchemized. It had just come out. It's like this
Okay.
1,000 page, I guess I would call it fantasy, though I think it would also be called kind of like a dystopian fiction. It was very,
Nice.
very good. Yeah, highly recommend. It's really good.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I'm checking it
Yeah.
out on Google.
Yeah.
Uh, that's
It had what I was gonna say is it had almost like a gothic, like Frankenstein feel. So
yeah.
to be reading that in the middle of nowhere in a cabin, like at night, I was like,
Yeah, it's a little yeah.
maybe I shouldn't have picked this one, but it was a
I
very good
was so that's funny because like there was a few months ago where like actually it was I was riding the kind of high from doing this like trip where I was like in the woods. Sometimes I feel like I almost have too much energy where I'm like trying to relax at night and I can't. So I was like, okay, like I'll just start like reading and see if that can help me like rev down like or kind of like you know what I mean? Like and
one.
I don't know why this was a good idea, but I ended up like picking up like a horror book And I'm like, that is, I was, I'm like halfway, I'm like reading like chapter one, and I'm like,
You're
wait a
like
second,
spiking
like,
your heart rate
yeah, I'm like, what am
probably.
I doing? Like, this is not, like, this is not helping. This was a bad idea. Like, I stopped reading.
Yeah.
I forget what it was called. It was like Buffalo something. I don't know. But
Okay.
yeah, anyways, it was just like, yeah,
I promise
that's
there
funny.
are other books that probably wouldn't have spiked your heart rate.
Yeah, there's so my girlfriend and I we have a rule. So when we do trips to the cabin and stuff like that, we don't do horror movies. There was like we were watching one time we went like to West Virginia. We were watching like a horror movie called The Ritual. I don't know if you saw that. It's on Netflix. It's pretty good. Um
I don't think
and it's a good one. And like halfway through the movie, like something the electricity just short circuited and made a loud like bashing noise and like all the lights went out. And it's like the middle of the night. We're just like in the middle of the woods. We're like, nope.
so.
Like this is like we don't
No, thank you.
like absolutely not. This is not
I will say
it's
I
funny.
was thankful for my German Shepherd during the
Oh,
particular
that's
point
there you go.
where,
That's what
yeah,
you want.
I
Yeah.
get some scary dog privilege, even though he's
Oh
not
yeah.
the
Nobody's
least
messing with
scary
you if you're
dog
like
ever.
yeah, people are terrified of German Shepherds, so that's
They are.
perfect. Yeah,
It is
yeah.
perfect. I know. I'll
Yeah.
take it.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Well, cool. So like, so let's talk a little bit about like where you're at today. It's
Yeah.
such an exciting time for you. I mean, you were promoted. I think you got what your third or fourth promotion at Juniper Square
Yeah.
um,
Crazy.
recently, and now you're running the talent acquisition program over there, right?
I am as of January.
That's so freaking cool. Well, congrats on that.
Thank Thank you. It has been a crazy journey, and each step of the way, I don't think I could have ever predicted. I think that's how a lot of people could say it, but it has been a really fun ride with my team.
Yeah, that's it's so cool. So what are you doing this year in the role? Like, what's your
Yeah.
obsession and focus currently for
Yeah.
2026?
So I'm learning a lot as I go, and I'm giving myself a lot of grace to do it as needed. But what I will say is I really lucked out. So coming into Juniper Square, I actually was someone who always said I never wanted to go into management. I actually said those words. I
Hmm.
said, I don't think I see myself as a manager. And I had a mentor, you know him, Tommy,
Hmm.
who basically just said, "Are you sure?" Just that way. He said, "Are you sure?" And he said there he just saw some things in me, and he really gave me the opportunity to freely try. And I found that I found a lot of fulfillment and excitement in being able to not only help others, but lead our team in a direction that made us all better and made us the best that we could be. And so I ended up growing into that in my time at Juniper Square. And as I stepped into this role leading the team in January, I really wanted to stay kind of core. As we look at this next year, I do want to stay core to the sides of me that love to get things done, love to move quickly, love to
Yeah.
be that kind of that individual contributor mindset, but really help that kind of next level in my team, the way that I've been helped through my career to recognize potential and how we're growing this. So for me, a lot of this next year is going to be focused on my team on helping enable them, empower them, and provide the resources for them as we navigate this world of AI and new technology and new things that in the recruiting space we haven't necessarily explored before. And then also at the end of the day, we are growing fast at my current company. So we just need to make sure in this next year that we're hitting those goals and again, prioritizing building the best team that we possibly can.
That's awesome. So like when you think about empowering your team and being a good mentor and helping them be the best version of themselves, like do you have any advice or like
Yeah.
for other leaders tuning in, like how do you approach that like on a day
Yeah.
to day?
Yeah. A few things. I think one, having a really great team helps in all of this. I need
Yeah.
to shout out my team in that. They are just a group of really great people. But I think for me, I'm so close to the role that a lot of my team is doing. So I'm always finding ways of how can I step in and help and remove remove roadblocks. I think that's a common term, but for me, it's really about they are very, very capable. How am I giving them the tools, the resources? That could be systems. We have a lot of different tools that we use at Juniper Square. That could be learning resources. That could be my time and helping navigate different areas. So there's a couple different things, but I am really encouraging just my team at this point in time to, if Juniper Square can give you kind of XYZ in the form of resources, support, be curious, be the person that asks, hey, what does this system do? What does this button do? Go figure it out, go try. And I think the pairing of those two leads to what I'm hoping in this next year is a lot of growth for everyone.
Yeah, that's so freaking cool. I think you also let me see here. I just want to make sure I cover everything here because you shared a lot of good stuff with me.
Hmm.
You also talked about tech investment, right? And
Yeah,
enablement. And um it sounds like that is something that's like, as you mentioned already, like a big part of enabling your team too. Um a lot of people are like evaluating tech stack like more than ever, right?
yeah,
Uh so like how are you even approaching like enablement, automation, AI, or determining what roles tech should play and not play, and like
yeah.
what's top of mind for you right now?
How much time do you have?
I was plenty.
Kidding.
Yeah, like
Plenty.
let's do it. Yeah. What do you got?
I think there's so many learnings in positive and negative ways. I think what I have learned, so for us at Juniper Square, we use Ashby as our applicant tracking system,
Mm,
and then we supplement. We utilize and are testing out AI interviewers, and then we also have a different tool for headcount planning, and then a different tool for some more of our kind of like HRIS people off stuff. So there have been a lot of system implementations at Juniper Square this year, and I think if I could go back a year, I would, you learn so much when you go through them, but it's real. There can be fatigue from this.
mm,
What I appreciate about my company and the leadership here is there is this kind of mentality of try fast, fail fast. So don't be afraid to try, test it out. Is it working for us? What are we learning?
yeah.
And also if it's not working, make the decision that it's not working and let's move on. And so I've really empowered my team to try. Now, give it your full effort. One of our other systems that we use is Gem for sourcing.
Mm,
And there are times where the team has been like, this is really working for me. And then times that they're like, this really is not. And I'm spending a
yeah.
lot of time solving for this. And there's room as a leader to say, okay, great. Thank you for trying that. Let's continue. Or, you know what, if something else works for you or you've tested out else something out, go do that. I think that's how we're looking at it. But one thing that we've done at Juniper Square is we partnered with an organization called Talent by Design to help us define some like AI specific principles to evaluate our systems and tools that we're using. We just went through that activity actually. And so I think moving forward in this next year, it's going to be a lot more thoughtful of like, what's the end goal of where we want to get versus, hey, this is a great system for sourcing. Let's just try it out. What are the actual outcomes that we're trying to drive from it? So that so far has been our approach.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ashby seems to be like pretty popular right now. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I know Greenhouse still is, but Ashby, it's like I'm seeing with a lot of the fastest growing companies right now, Ashby's name coming up more and more. I'm just curious to get your thoughts about like what you like about it and why you feel like it's so popular these days.
I will say I've worked with a lot of systems, and I don't say this about all of them. I am a huge, huge fan of Ashby. I think it is a system that has a really, really big footprint and you can use it in a lot of different ways. And you can also use it for the bare minimum. You can kind of move candidates through pipeline. And if that's your main goal, that's great. But if you really want to dive into the data, if you want to dive into the key setup and forms and sequences and all of those type of things, Ashby has a lot of functionality.
That's
And that
awesome.
has been really great for a very adaptive team. We're a team that often as we're planning for the year, might not have to pivot very quickly. I think a lot of teams do. And I think Ashby's really empowered us to do that. We have a person on our team who is, her name's Kendra. She's a people analytics manager, and she has made us just the most beautiful dashboards and views into our hiring teams and departments that I've never really had in previous organizations, and all built through Ashby reporting and functionality. So a few different things, but huge fan over here.
That's awesome. Bright Hire is pretty impactful, right? Like I think Bright Hire is pretty cool. I mean, do you feel like you're seeing a major like productivity lift, or is it just like do you see it more as a nice to have? I mean, I think it's cool, but like in terms
Yeah.
of driving strategic outcomes, like how much of a impact are you seeing there?
Really good question. To be honest, I will say I'm still a little jury's out there. We just implemented it in January, so we're still going through some of the kind of pain points of implementation of getting users bought in and using it. I think with now don't get me wrong, with any type of AI co-pilot or AI assistant, it's so nice to not to need to take manual notes. It's so nice to not to kind of have to be splitting your brain as you're talking to somebody and making sure you're getting the right information down. But I do think there is a loss there in some ways of just kind of the um your own opinions that you form during an interview. How are you making sure that those are being logged and tracked versus just a summary of what the conversation spits out? So we have done some enablement with our hiring teams that there still needs to be a review here. There is still an action by our hiring
Mhm.
team to submit their feedback because we don't want just your AI summary output. That actually doesn't really help us make any type of informed decision. What we need is how did you assess that answer? How did you say on a scale of 1 to 10, this person did on that? That's what AI isn't going to give you. So I think it in some ways is a nice to have, but I also think a year from now, I think they're going to look AI co-pilots and just kind of note takers in interviews are really going to continue to adapt into how we're using them in those situations. So for right now, I'm kind of just observing and learning from it.
And then with the AI interviewing, like top of funnel, so
Yeah.
you're leveraging this for inbound, I would assume,
Yep.
or is it okay?
Yep.
Um, are you doing like SMS, voice, like video? Like what are you
So one
currently?
is kind of
Okay,
like chat interview back and forth, and so it's logged like written answers, and one is um, audio interview. And we're doing it and we're testing it on one department in Juniper Square. And this is a department that we have very high volume evergreen roles in the years of experience between 1 to 5 plus years. The reason that we did it in this department is that we have a lot of proven success of what are good answers and what are
sure.
not good
Yeah.
answers. And so with that, our recruiters, the way we're using it right now, is we still do a resume review on what we would, usually move forward. However, we have given ourselves like some freedom of, hey, maybe I wouldn't have put this profile forward before based on the resume and my limited recruiter screen time. I'm going to move it forward with an AI interviewer, and our goal is to give more candidates the opportunity to be evaluated through this type of process, and then based on those results, move people accordingly forward to recruiter screen. So for us at this time, it is not replacing any step. It is merely supplementing and hopefully giving more opportunity to evaluate more candidates more quickly. We're using it to really adjust what is a recruiter's role during that conversation then in the first check-in. If you can collect a good amount of information pre a recruiter screen, I really think that that all has allowed us to up level the questions that we're asking and the detail then that we're able to go to our hiring managers with on why we do or do not recommend a candidate. So
Yeah, to me, I think the AI screening at a high level, not even replacing, it's not about replacing a recruiter. It's about the recruiter saving potentially 40 plus hours a month in administrative work, reviewing inbounds. When you extrapolate how much time it takes to review every resume, like how much that adds up in
yeah.
doing the screenings. You don't actually know this, but so Secure Vision's my first company, and I just started another software startup called June.
Okay.
June is an AI interviewer, and
Okay.
the a lot of like what we're seeing with the pilots that we're running is like literally in some cases like 40 plus hours a month. Like recruiters are getting back, depending on the
Yep.
inbound volume, of course. There's like almost this concern of like candidate experience, but what's actually interesting is that candidates are giving pretty strong feedback with these tools. They don't have to take time off work. They don't have
Yep.
to invest in speaking with somebody unless it's like a high level fit. They're getting an instant response, right? They're not just like off, not knowing if they're gonna, if they're gonna hear back from a company.
Yep.
I think it's the highest leverage use case for AI
Mhm.
in recruiting right now. That's just from my experience being in tech for like the past decade. I've helped like hundreds of companies hire, like I've seen it all. I
Yeah.
think there's some other, like I think Bright Hires, like it's impactful, but from like an actual output productivity perspective, like eliminating the top of funnel bottleneck is, I think, probably one of the most important things folks could be doing.
Yeah.
Um,
That really excites me what you said about the time savings, because I think we talk a lot about AI and like it's going to make us more efficient, but like then the next step of this like conversation is like you saved 40 hours, what are you going to go do with that? Like
right,
you can do so much, like you can up level like are like focusing more on talent excellence, making sure we're spending that time deeply evaluating a candidate. There's so many examples here, but I like use cases that allow for those time savings. And then the second question of like, now what can we go do?
right.
Um, so yeah, that really excites me. I think that's where we're
Yeah,
heading.
I find it really exciting, like because you hit the nail on the head. You said something really really smart. You talked about how like the conversation with the recruiter then changes.
Mhm.
So it's
Yes.
like the screen, like their screen, right? Like the human screen becomes like more in depth and more valuable. So not only do you see like a typically a higher pass through rate to like the hiring manager round or
Yeah.
the next round, which isn't a high pass through rate isn't necessarily always a good thing, but like in this case, if it's like somebody who's been vetted by AI and then has a more in-depth conversation with a recruiter,
Yeah.
because like the reality is like the amount of time I feel like that recruiters have with candidates to screen, frankly, isn't enough if the candidate's really good.
Yes.
Like
Ever.
30 minutes is just I can
And
spend
you're
50.
spending 15 minutes of that just doing the basics.
Yeah, and it's like okay, well then it's like you go over and some candidates you want to meet with. Like there's times where it's like I'll even tell like our recruiters at the RPO firm, Secure Vision, like, hey, like someone's really good. You might want to set another call with them before sending them through. Like just have like because
Mhm.
I can spend 15 minutes just talking with a candidate about references. Like, can you get a reference from previous direct manager? How are they going to talk about your performance 1 out of 10? What are they going to say you do best? What are they going to say is an area of improvement? Like,
Yes.
just that takes like 15 minutes.
Yep.
And like those, like the valuable part of the conversation just takes longer. So it's like, it just makes it a higher impact conversation where you can dive deeper, you know?
100%. Agree so much with that. And I think you mentioned that point on like candidate experience, like people are worried like, hey, does this make it a better or worse candidate experience? I think that's where like transparency in what you're doing is so key. We really invested in that in our communication to candidates who are going through this process. And our goal there was to communicate our goal is to increase the opportunity of more people being able to explore and move through a process at Juniper Square than reduce. By introducing this stage, we're actually able to collect more information on more people more quickly. That then
Mhm.
allows that like kind of more like additional opportunity for candidates. So I think
Yeah,
that's
for
too.
sure. I think it's just like, it just for senior recruiters, it opens
Mhm.
like a lot of not only the hours back, but just like the impact. Like it's
Mhm.
like the impact of being able to like I just don't want like if you're paying a senior recruiter 100 to 180,000 a year or whatever it might be to be asking like basic like
Yeah.
it just what do we do?
That's
Like
usually,
that's
yeah.
not a good like from an
Yeah.
like an ROI, just like a pure investment perspective, is like why, right? That's yeah, it's really cool. And then, I did want to talk a little bit about like just zooming out, right? So we talked about kind of your obsession this year, like what you're focused on. It's
Mhm.
like super helpful, beneficial, like everything you've shared. Zooming out, like what are your top takeaways in talent acquisition at this point in your career? Like for other leaders tuning in,
Mhm.
what's most important in terms of being a
Yeah.
successful TA leader?
Yeah. I think really some of the through themes that I've learned in my career and then kind of stepping into this new role is that we talked about this a little bit, but I was never really someone who like planned to grow based on the title or where I wanted to be in 3 to 5 years. I just wanted to be the best at the role that I was doing. And I think that is really what I want to take into leadership as well, is this kind of this path to excellence. What does it mean? And for me, it breeds motivation, it breeds excitement, it breeds like me showing up every day and really wanting to continue to improve at what I'm doing. And I think that then bleeds and hopefully can share that with the rest of my team. I think also just I'm very aware as a talent leader that every opportunity, every conversation, every interaction is a chance to build trust, to build brand, and to be authentic. It doesn't matter. People can really tell if, you're not being that kind of authentic self. And my goal is to always kind of be the same in as many rooms as possible. And so with that, I've really formed some really deep, trusted relationships with leaders across the organization here at Juniper Square that I think lended itself to a lot of the success that I've seen here. And some of that comes in the small moments. It doesn't come in the big, flashy, like, let me report out on this AI interviewer pilot that I'm doing. Like, that's great. But it comes in the day-to-day interactions, in the hard no's and the hard conversations. That's when you build trust. And I think that is something we all need to be kind of continuing to invest in at the leadership level, because I think that also then reflects on the brand of the people team, that you are that partner for the business. So those are some kind of top takeaways for me right now.
Yeah, for sure. And you also talked about capacity planning, which probably is something that
Yeah,
like we don't talk about enough in talent acquisition, like content. There really is like a science behind it, and I
there
do see
is.
a lot of companies get it wrong. Like getting it wrong though, it's not necessarily like due to always an understanding. Like it's also just at hyper growth stage companies, like things change so rapidly. But I think that that's part of like how to build a proper capacity plan is thinking about those things. But
Yeah.
you did mention that as like one of your top takeaways. So I'd be
Yeah.
curious to learn more about like top lessons learned when thinking about capacity planning.
Yeah, I think it's one of my top takeaways, mainly because I spend so much time doing it. And I don't know, I almost want to like question the audience section here of your
Yeah.
podcast, something like that, because I'd be curious to hear just kind of how so many different leaders are approaching this. But I think for us at Juniper Square, a lot of what we do and how we grow and how we hire is tied to business impact, like many, but also client growth. And so with that, there isn't always a like kind of predictive ability. And we can plan for some things, right? Like the headcount plan that we go into the year with, the backfill, like kind of attrition assumptions that we're assuming for the year. But outside of that, that a lot changes. And with that, I will say, with a combination of Ashby and some beautiful reporting that Kendra on our team does, we have been able to build, something just in a Google sheet that gives me a view into the year and allows me to kind of manipulate, like, if X happened, what would this look like? Or if I got, 40 roles in this space, what would that do from a capacity perspective? It's not
Hmm.
perfect. It doesn't always give you exactly what you need. But for me, at least it gives me somewhat of an insight with data to make really informed decisions versus just responding to directly what's in front of me, as there can often be a panic when those kind of big spikes come. I want to make sure
Yeah.
I make really informed decisions.
Oh,
So,
that's really smart. So I think like the key takeaway for leaders tuning in from my perspective too is like you're running kind of predictive models. Like you're not just looking at okay, based on the hiring plan today, but you're running those what if scenarios, which I'm assuming you're giving some thought to like, okay,
yeah,
where would it most likely be? But that way it's like you're looking at, okay, how prepared are we currently to deal with XYZ fluctuations? And if we're not, okay, well, then it's like you can have that conversation with other members of the leadership team where it's like, okay, look, like if we're doing this and you're already coming proactively, you're being proactive about knowing versus like
yeah,
reactively scrambling to try to figure out what to do, which
yeah.
it's also just a really good look for you and like for other TA leaders because your like CEO is going to be impressed.
I hope and I'll say this.
Yeah.
I don't have it perfect, but what I can say, and I'm sure a lot of other leaders can relate to this, is if you are really embedded in your business, you start hearing. So you start your kind of exec leader says, I think we're gonna hire like 100 people by the end of the year. And I'm like, oh, that's not in the headcount plan, but they you built this trust, you built this rapport. Like, I'm sure there's so many examples people can think of when that happens. And while that isn't in a headcount plan and it's not in a budget and it's not accounted for, I can tuck that information away, and I can't necessarily like go out and hire for my team today, but like I can plan for it. I'm like, if
Yeah,
X
for
happened,
sure.
like what would I need to do? And it allows me to take this information that I'm getting from the business and hopefully in some ways, maybe like 50% of the time, try to get ahead of some of it.
Yeah, that's really just that's great advice. We talked about like your like moving forward, like growth as a professional, and you said you brought up excellence like several times. Like it sounds like that's just sort of like your obsessive kind of thought when you think about your
Yeah.
career trajectory and like what you're focused on, which is cool because it's not like, you didn't say title, you talked to like you just like the essence of the core of like what matters to you, which is probably why you keep getting promoted, like because you're not even focused on that. You're just focused on like having an incredibly high bar. But like just what any additional context there, like why do you feel like that's your obsessive thought and it seems like it's benefited you a lot, right? Like
Yeah.
from the outside in. So
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I think the answer keeps evolving. I mentioned motivation. We spend a lot of time at work, right? And it is an important piece of my life, but it's not my whole life. But if I'm going to be spending this much time doing something, I want it to mean something, and I want it to really kind of carry impact beyond maybe just like the years that I spend in an organization. And so for a lot of that for me, kind of where I'm focusing now is wanting to be the best is I really want to pay back the mentors and the leaders that have invested me into kind of that next layer into my team. I have so benefited from people who saw something in me, partnered with me, said, "Do you want to try this? Do you want this opportunity?" And blend that with my desire to say yes to as many things as I can. I think that's paid off for me. And so I want to help identify that and then provide those opportunities for people to say yes, to lean into those stretch opportunities and to take on more. So that's really what I'm hoping to grow in this year and move a little bit past the just kind of like move as fast as possible, fill as many roles as possible, and more into kind of how are we doing this as a team in a way that, kind of makes everyone better.
yeah, I love it. And to zoom out a little bit, again, like what you said, is like career is part of who you are, but it's not like your identity. Like it's part of it, I guess, right? But like
Yeah.
we're in a people business and like like I want to learn more about like you and I'm just curious, at this point in your life, what would you say is some of like the top takeaways or advice you have? I mean, you talked to me a little bit about experimentation, trying
Hmm.
new things, like is
Yeah.
that would you say like that's like your big takeaway at this point in your life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, that is one. I think this idea of just kind of saying yes to things, I have seen probably the most like fulfilling pieces of my life personally when I said yes to the unexpected. A few years ago, I actually decided to up and move from 5 years ago now, so not a few, 5 years ago, I moved from Chicago, where I'd spent most of my life in the Midwest, and I decided to move to San Diego. Didn't know a soul out there, just said if I was going to do it at any time, let's just do it now. And I had a lot of like moments of questioning, like, is this right? Should I have done this? Am I crazy? All my stuff's in the U-Haul. It's lost. I don't know where the U-Haul is. Like all this stuff. But I am so appreciative for that moment in my life. And I think there's a lot of examples like that I have where that is where I've learned the most, grown the most, met the most new people, tried the most new things. And I think that I will take those moments and those memories of my life, and that is what I'll remember 20, 50 years from now, maybe not necessarily like the system I implemented in 2025, you know what I
Probably
mean?
not.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
like, probably
Yeah.
not. So it's like those are the things that have really say like impacted me. I'm just kind of saying yes to those things and learning with what comes along with that. And I think for someone again who is a self-proclaimed like organized, efficient person, there's uncomfort in that too. There's a level of like kind of fear and anxiety, but it's always paid off in the end.
I think so. I think curiosity over comfort. Like,
Oh
um,
yeah.
it's I think striving for comfort is actually like a bad thing. It's something I've been actually thinking about a lot lately. And it's just sort of like in parallel to like what you're saying. I don't even
Yeah.
think like comfort isn't a natural state. It's the exception. It's not the rule. So it's like to have that striving for that to be a goal is I think it's just not even like natural or aligned with like humanity. Like it's life is challenging. It's hard, and that's okay. That's normal. And I think it's like we're so lucky, right, to be able to be work in tech and to have the stability and to live where we live and all of these things. And it's I think it's like because we're more comfortable. A lot of times people fall in this, in my opinion, a trap of like constantly seeking it.
Hmm.
And seeking that stability and the certainty and but like I feel like it's so much of what life has to offer to make the most out of life. It's like we have to be willing to be uncomfortable. And in fact, arguably, to live our best life, we have to be uncomfortable. Like it's thinking about like successful people, like going to the gym every day. It's not always the most comfortable thing, or sometimes like it's hard to to have a fulfilling life, to be a good uh, kid, or good to your parents as they get older, or to be a good parent, or to be good in your career. All these things are hard.
Yeah.
These are hard things, and I think it's like maybe embracing that,
Yeah.
embracing discomfort, embracing the fear, the anxiety that comes with it, because that following that curiosity and leaning into just an acceptance of like things are going to be uncomfortable. Like if I want to have a good life, like things are going to be uncomfortable. It's
Mhm.
just natural. That's just the way life is. Like I feel
Yeah.
like you can get so much more out of life than just striving for to stay in your comfort zone and not say yes to new things, right?
I'm going to bring back story, the book analogies that my brain constantly goes to, which is no one wants to read a book about someone who's just comfortable in their life the whole time. Like we literally seek stories of the people who have struggled or done something hard, or like most like a book start with like some big event happening and then they have to overcome it. Like those are the stories that we're interested in. And so I don't want to just read stories about other people doing that. I would also like to go through my own
Yeah,
life experiences that round that out as well.
100%. Yeah. It's like lean into it. It's just like lean into the just being out of a comfort zone. It's like
Yep.
that's where all of like I feel like the passion in life really can come from, right?
Yep.
So I
Add
couldn't
in
agree
good
more.
friends and good family, and it's a good recipe.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love that. This has just been such an incredible conversation with you, and I feel like I've learned a lot, and it's actually helped like because I think we have similar worldviews in a lot of ways, but it's like helped
Yeah.
crystallize my thinking. Just hearing you articulate it has been
Thank you.
really cool. You're clearly a very bright person, and you just like you've made it so far, but you still have so far to go. Like you're gonna
Yeah.
keep, you've got it. But your advice on the TA front was also incredibly like helpful. So thank you very much for joining me on the show today. I know people are going to love this episode.
Thank you. You've made a very comfortable space to talk, and I've learned a
Yeah.
lot as we've chatted as well. So thank you.
Nice. Yeah, this was awesome. And hey, for everybody tuning in, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.